Hi, grade fives. I hope you're all doing well. Today is day 2 of math, so it's a Monday, March 23rd. So at the beginning of every math lesson, or yeah, for most of them anyways, I'll post this. So what you see right now, the first slide will always just be everything we need. So at this point, pause the video, grab all the 4 items that you need. The materials you need today will be your math notebook, a pencil to write with, a highlighter, obviously for our can statements and important information, and then a ruler, because we're going to be doing some review of measurement from last year. So pause right now, grab all those 4 items and come back, and then we can start. Okay, and as always, we're going to be starting so open up to a fresh page in your math notebook. We're going to be writing some notes. Today is our first day of our new unit, which is called measurement. Let's get a fancy color. So make sure you got the date. I already do. Then we'll get our title, measurement, and then as always, our I can statement. And our learning goal for today, our I can statement is I can recall, which is also just means like review, right? Think back to everything. I can recall my understanding of measurement from grade 4. Now, hopefully you remember most, if not all of this, and if you don't, that's also okay. Don't panic. That just means you need to make sure you're reviewing everything I write down today. Make sure you understand everything we discussed today before we move on tomorrow to officially building on this foundation of measurement that you've already attained in the previous years. Okay, so make sure your title's there, your date, and then I can statement. I've obviously bubbled it. Please make sure you highlight it. That was why you needed a highlighter. And of course, I can't come around to double check, but I'm trusting you that you will make sure you've highlighted. So let's just do the basics. Let's do some basics. Let's say basics to remember. Now, just like in addition, subtraction, or multiplication, we have facts that we just need to remember. We need to know. Like 2 plus 2, that's drilled, it's like ingrained in your mind that 2 plus 2 is always 4, or 2 times 2 is 4. Things like that. The basics of measurement that hopefully was drilled into your mind from previous grades would be the following, and if not, then this is what you need to focus on, that you know the following. That 1 centimeter is equal to some millimeters. Try doing this in your head before I write them down. See how much you remember. 1 meter is equal to blank centimeters. Try filling that in on your own. See how much you remember. And also 1 meter is equal to blank millimeters. And then 1 kilometer is equal to blank meter. I'll give you a moment to do that while you're trying to dig through all that information that you knew from previous years. I want you to also take a moment to look at your ruler. Now, I don't have one, so we're going to look at this one. So I just got a picture of a ruler. Now, hopefully your ruler looks something like this. It might not look exactly the same. You might be missing some of the little ticks, but mainly the stuff that you should remember is that each one of these, so all the larger, we call them dashes or ticks, they all represent which unit? Hopefully you're saying centimeter, right? Sometimes your ruler may have centimeter written right next to it. Maybe it's written next to every single one of them, maybe just the first one. The ruler that I'm looking at right now in my class has centimeter just written by this 0, and the rest of them are empty. Regardless, they're all the same. That you should know that longer lines, the longer dashes, the ones like the longer ones here, they all represent 1 centimeter. So every chunk is 1 centimeter. All these tinier ones, the little mini ones that we see, these tiny, these and these and these, hopefully remember, represent a millimeter. So the previous, and we'll go back to the page in a moment, one of the questions was, 1 centimeter, so we know that's 1 centimeter from here to here, is how many millimeters? Now, in your mind, automatically you should have just gone to 10. But how do we know that? We know that if we're at 0 centimeter and I count each one of those ticks, so we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 millimeter in 1 centimeter. But also, like I said, hopefully that just kind of comes to you as you know, like your multiplication facts or mental math that you should know. And if not, make sure you memorize that. So 1 centimeter, you should have that ingrained in your mind, is 10 millimeters. 1 meter, so excuse me, as you remember, there's always a meter stick in the front of my room, and I'm sure your room for Mr. Matt and Miss Rachel, there's always that meter stick you see. It's equal to how many centimeters? Hopefully you said 100. And that same 1 meter, that 1 meter stick, now is equal to how many millimeters? So those tiny little ones is 1,000 millimeters. And the last one, 1 kilometer. So if I'm traveling 1 kilometer, or I'm walking, or I'm in a car, it's equal to 1,000 meters. Okay, these 4 basics you need to have memorized. They should just kind of be in your mind, like 2 times 2, 4. You just kind of know it. These should also be just in your mind, kind of drilled in there. Okay, if not already. A few little, and I'll just make a little point here. We can think of, let's call them reference. Reference just means a reference point, like things to help us memorize. Quick, let's make this black. So a good way to memorize or understand, and maybe you already have a wonderful understanding of what 1 centimeter looks like, but an approximation, it's always about, not the exact, it's different for everyone, but it's about the width of, we can say my little finger. Obviously, our fingers are all a little bit different, but it's about the width of your little finger. So now how long it is, how wide it is. Then 1 millimeter is about the thickness of a dirham. So imagine a dirham right now. Again, not how round it is or how wide it is, your thickness. So if you put it down on the table and you crouch down and you looked at it, just how wide it is, which is tiny, 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 right? It's really, really, it's not flat. It's 3D obviously, but it's really tiny. That's about 1 millimeter. And then 1 meter, as you see in my classroom, I'm looking at it right now because I'm in my classroom and you're not, but it's about the width of a door. Again, not the length of a door. Obviously, that's much longer than 1 meter. It's over 2 meters. But the width, how wide it is, it's about 1 meter. So these are reference points, or reference as we call them, to help you remember, have a visual representation of each unit. So now pause the video right now. Make sure you got this all written down before we move forward. Make sure your date's there, your title, your I can statement that is highlighted, please and thank you. Then your basics, and then some reference. Okay, you might want to highlight some things that you think you want to highlight. I've put the numbers and I put the title of references in a different color, sorry. Okay, and we're moving on. So now, and we looked at the ruler. Okay, so just look at your ruler just to go over that really quickly again, remembering that if we're looking, let's go over here. If we're looking from 7 to 8, that one scoopy. Now, if you look at it and put your finger, try putting your finger right now between 7 and 8. It's going to be about the width of your finger, right? It might be a little bit more, it might be a little less, but it's about the width of your pinky finger, right? So that width from 7 and 8 is 1 centimeter, which is also equal to 10 millimeter. Same thing from 9 to 10, from this dash to this dash, it's 1 centimeter, which is also equal to 10 millimeters. Okay, but this should just be really, really review. You must be thinking, Ms. Lavish, we know this, keep going. Okay, next. Now let's do a review of how to read a ruler, which also should be very much review, should not be anything new. When we're reading, when we're reading a ruler, there's two different ways you could be reading a ruler. The most obvious way is when you're just using it the proper way. So make sure you got reading a ruler. Make sure you underline it or highlight it, however you would like for it to stand out. Okay, first way is when it's just a proper regular ruler. So I've got two examples. Let's look at example 1 first. So now let's just say I had a stick, okay, and my stick was, and I'll do a different color. My stick, I found a stick, I went for a walk, and I found a stick that was, let's say, this long. And I asked, how long is that stick? Right? How long is that stick that you found on your hike or something? You would, and hopefully you remember, you would say, okay, I've got to start at 0, which is this point, okay? And I've gone all the way and it ends over here. So that tells me I went from 0 to 8, therefore it is 8 centimeters, right? Easy enough. If I found another stick, my sister went for a walk with me as well, and she found a stick. She really wanted to find a long one, but unfortunately she found a really short stick and it was just that long. Same thing, I'm starting from here because I know I'm over here and it ended over here. I know that this stick happens to be 3 centimeters, right? That should be easy enough. Now the important part here you need to know is that I'm starting right at 0, right? Let me go over that again. Let's go back. When I'm drawing that stick, when I'm measuring that stick, I'm not starting at that right at the edge of the ruler, right? I've started, because that doesn't count. This little space is basically nothing. It's not even, we're not starting at 0. So if I lined up the ruler this way, this would be wrong, right? You would need to instead put your stick right at the starting of your stick right at 0 and then measure, which would be 3 centimeters long. Okay, so make sure you understand that we're starting right at 0, because some of our rulers, and I'm looking at my ruler right now, and look at your ruler, and it's just like the picture I've got here. They always have this little chunk of just basically nothing, right? It doesn't represent anything. And you're probably thinking, why don't they just start there? But they don't. Some of the rulers, most rulers actually, will have this little chunk of nothingness. So make sure when you're lining up anything, you're starting right at that point where it would be 0. Okay? That's your real hint in case you forgot. So this is absolutely nothing. Make sure to start at 0. Okay, that'll be my little reminder for you. Okay, second way of reading a ruler is what we call improper. And you may have called them different things in grade 4 or grade 3. It just means it's not a typical ruler, and I'll tell you why for a few reasons. Sometimes you may have been calling it is a broken. So most common is calling it a broken ruler, which basically means that maybe it was literally broken, but it just means you're not starting at so here you probably notice we always started at 0. But let's say to be able to understand this, that you weren't starting at 0. And I put an example here. So example 3, I want to measure this pencil. Okay, but now I don't want to start at 0, right? So 0 would be right here. This would be, this is 0. I don't want to start at 0. For some reason, I want to start right here. This is my starting point. I've started at 5 instead of 0. Now, that's not wrong. It just means I'm starting at 5. What this does mean, though, I need to be really mindful of what I'm saying. So some people would say, oh, I'm looking at my ruler. I've got 0 here. I've stopped at 11. Therefore, this is 11 centimeters. And if you said that, unfortunately, you are wrong. It is not 11 centimeters. In your mind, I want you to think, why is it not 11 centimeters? I'll pause for a few moments. Why is this pencil that I'm looking at my ruler, I'm looking at my whole ruler, and Ms. Mavish, you said I have to look at where it ends, because just like the stick ended at 8, this stick ended at 3. That's my measurement, right? Unfortunately, that's why this is called improper. That's why we labeled it improper, because it didn't start at 0. So if it doesn't start at 0, Doesn't mean you can't measure, it just means you need to remember how to measure, which is, you're not counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now you have to look at the starting point. Same way here, right? Our starting point happened to be 0. Our ending point happened to be 3. Therefore, it is 3 centimeters. My starting point here was 0. My ending point was 8. Therefore, my measurement is 8 centimeters. Here, we need to look at our starting point, which is 5, and my ending is 11. You can do this a few different ways. You can just subtract the 2, right? You can say 11, subtract 5, or you can just think, okay, how many Scoopies am I? I'm going from 5 to 6, that's 1, 6 to 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Therefore, this is 6 centimeters. Okay, you can do it a few different ways. Let me erase this. You can either go, okay, look at my ending point. My ending point happens to be 11. My starting point was 5. You can subtract the 2, right, which is 6. Or you can do Scoopies like I did. We always do Scoopies, and you can say 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 6 centimeters. And this subtraction works with everything, right? If I tried it over here, right, if I tried it to get 8, same thing. I finished at 8, so I'll say 8. Where did I start? Go all the way back to the front. I started at 0, subtract 0, 8 centimeters. So even though we weren't doing subtraction, mentally we were, because we started at 0. So a few things for this improper broken ruler. You can do a couple things. You can start at the ending, subtract it from the beginning, or you can just do Scoopies, right? Easiest way is just look at the Scoopies if you want to, right? So just look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Therefore, this is 6 centimeters, and I'll put it here just so you remember. It is not, and then maybe you want to highlight this. I'll use a red. It is not 11 centimeters. So if initially you thought it's 11, hopefully you understand why it's not. This is a very common misconception that just because I've ended at 11, it's 11 centimeters. Nope. Let's do a few examples of that. So again, pause the video here if you need to draw anything, you need to copy anything down, and then we're going to move on. Nearly done. Okay, let's do another example. So you don't have to draw this. You can you can draw it, of course, or you can just draw a stick this long. But another few examples of a broken, right? These are broken rulers. And in this case, they're literally broken. So even if you, right now, maybe if you're holding a ruler that's broken, you can still use it as long as you've got a chunk that has some units. So here, again, we can do the 2 ways. First way is to do the mathematical way. So I'm going to look at where did I end? I finished at 12. So I've got 12. And then I'm going to go all the way back to see where I started. And I've started over here. So I'm going to say subtract 6, which is equal. You're just doing your subtraction facts. So that means we got 6, and this is centimeters. Okay? Or the second way you can do it, and I'll just write Scoopies. You can count Scoopies, right? I've started, and I'll do this in a different color so it stands out. I've started at 6, so I'm just going to draw Scoopies. I've got 1 centimeter, 2 centimeter, 3 centimeter, 4 centimeter, 5 centimeter, 6 centimeters. And it's also 6 centimeters. In case, if these 2 answers are ever not the same, you know something went wrong. This is a good way to check. So maybe you accidentally had 5 here for some reason. You know that, oh, 5 and 6, something went wrong. So that's also a good check to just double check. Even if you prefer subtraction, go back and check with Scoopy just to make sure, right? You know how much I stress double checking our work. Okay, let's do the second one. Let's do first the subtraction way. So I finished at, you can see I finished over here, so I've got 10. So the first way is doing subtraction. I've got 10. And I'm going to go all the way back to the start, which happens to be 7. 10 subtract 7, we know it's 3 centimeters. And now let's double check with our Scoopies. Oh, oops. 2 with our Scoopies. You're Your parents are probably wondering, what are scoopies? Explain to them. We've always got scoopies. So you say where I've started, and I've started over here, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and that's where I've ended. Perfect. So we know 3 centimeters, and I can double check. Yes, they are correct indeed. That is what we call a broken ruler. Okay, so being able to understand how to measure with a regular, or what we call a proper ruler, right? When I'm starting at 0, and I'm measuring an item, and also understand how to use an improper ruler or broken ruler in case I have not given you a part of it, and I want you to start in the middle of it. So right now I've started in the 5, and we're literally in the middle of it to measure something. You still can use your measurement tools. Okay? So make sure you've gotten that. If you needed to pause or whatnot, pause it now to make sure you've got all the information. And then we'll move on to the last page. And also, just like in the beginning of every math lesson, I'll start with the materials needed. At the end of every math lesson, I'll end with a to-do list, which is what you're going to be doing after every math lesson. So your first job is to review today's math lesson. So sometimes, and it happens right now when you're in class too, right? Sometimes we get so busy copying down the notes and highlighting it and making it look so pretty that you just aren't even paying attention to the actual lesson. So step 1, just go back, quickly glance through everything we went through, make sure you understand it, and then move on. Today's practice is going to be very short. Your first job is to do textbook questions. There's only 4 questions, very short. It's on page 124, numbers 1, 3, 4, and 6. Those of you that did not come and pick up your textbooks, I will post these questions on Edmodo, so you'll see a section on Edmodo on these 4 questions. After you're done those, you're going to be doing a worksheet, and that. So this one, the textbook question, is about measurement. It's just reviewing your facts of how many centimeters are in meters, how many meters are in centimeters. The worksheets are going to be a review of rulers and how to measure with rulers, okay? That's why I want you to do 2 different sets. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, Ms. Mavish, I'm going to do the textbook and then I'm going to do the worksheet, but how do I know I'm doing it correct? At the end of the next, so I will either post the answers the next day, or I'll either post them at the end of the week, because I know a lot of us are doing flexible learning. So some of you are saying, I'm going to do all of math. Maybe I'm going to save all of math to the end of the weekend, or I'm going to do, or maybe you're doing it like we normally do, which is every day, every lesson. Regardless, that's up to you. I'll post the answers for the textbooks, questions, and the worksheets at the end, either tomorrow, so because I always give you one day, or at the end of the week on Thursday. Okay, so just keep an eye out for that, just to double check. And then the last bit, and this is new, is going to be a check-in. So at the end of every math lesson, we're going to be doing a quick check-in. It's like sort of like an online quiz, think of it like that. You're basically going to go on Edmodo, and it's labeled a quiz. There's always like 4 questions, maybe simple, maybe 3, 4, or 5 questions, not a lot. And I've given you, you've got ample amount of time. I've put it so that you have 60 minutes. Some of them you need 2 minutes, some of them you need 5 minutes, some of them you might need 10 minutes. But today's is just going to be reviewing these basic facts. So if you go back, a lot of it will just be understanding these basic facts, and also with rulers, okay? The reason we're going to be doing these check-ins are for 2 main reasons. One, just to make sure, because I'm not there, unfortunately, with e-learning. I'm not in your home right now to see if you understand or not, right? And that is probably the worst part about all. There's so many positives from all this, but one of the biggest negative is that I'm not there to see if you're understanding it, if you're not, and if you're not understanding it, what you're not understanding it. These check-ins, just like when we do check-ins in class, right? So we always do, maybe every other day or every 3rd day, we always do check-ins or check for understanding. That's what this is. It's a quick, and it's called quiz, but it's not quiz. It's going to be for me to see how much you understood from today's lesson. So I won't take it for marks unless I tell you, like today's check-in is for marks. Today's check-in, so for today, like this one that you're going to do today, for Monday, March 23rd, is just a check-in. It's not for marks. It's just for me to see how much you remember from grade 4, or oh boy, like we need to review a lot, okay? So that's just so go on Edmodo, it's under your quizzes. You'll see a little tab that says quizzes, and then you can do the quiz. Honestly, today's will probably just take you less than 5 minutes, probably not even, okay? So make sure you do those 4 things. So at the end of today, or whenever you're doing today's lesson, make sure you've done all 4 items: review, textbook questions, worksheet, and check-in. So these 2 will be found in Edmodo. This obviously will be in Edmodo because none of you have these worksheets. The textbook questions, in case you didn't take the textbook, I will also post on Edmodo. So you need to make sure that you're checking Edmodo consistently. And that's it. That's your math lesson for today. I hope that this is going to be something that's going to be like work for us. And if not, we're just going to make the best of the situation. Okay, I will see you for tomorrow's math lesson. Bye.